In the 2 years since the Russian invasion, tens of thousands of Ukrainian children have been kidnapped and taken to Russia. They've endured indoctrination and abuse. Thanks to a group that's helped hundreds escape, some of these children came to Washington, D.C. to shed light on this travesty. CBN's Jenna Browder sat down with 3 of them to hear their stories.
It's a war now entering its 3rd year. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Denis, Lisa, and Rostislav of the Kherson region saw their lives upended. How did your kidnapping happen?
One day, some of my teachers came and said that all of us should be going to Crimea to the camp. Then I went home, and that day in the evening, the Russian military came to my house and said that you had no choice, you're going.
That camp and 42 other Russian facilities went about indoctrinating kidnapped Ukrainian children.
They forced children to love Russia in these camps. They forced children to sing and to learn Russian anthem and Russian songs. And if you resist, if you wouldn't do it, they could punish you or even to put you in some foster family in Russia.
Were you afraid that you could have been adopted, or what do you think would have happened to you had you not been rescued?
After the camp, I was moved to occupied city Genichisk, and I was forced to go to some college there. And I knew that they were going to get me a Russian passport, and they were looking for foster family for me.
Ukraine has accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of fast-tracking citizenship for kidnapped Ukrainian children. And the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for Putin's arrest on war crimes charges in connection with these kidnappings.
I was suffering from psychological abuse a lot of time, because when teachers, caregivers, and psychologists there knew that my mom was going to come and bring me back, all this period they were like pressuring on me that it was all lie, that my mom wouldn't come.
All 3 teens say they suffered abuse in the camps. For Denis, who's diabetic, he was told he wouldn't get his medicine if he didn't obey.
There was an accident when this Astahov came to me and said if I wouldn't obey to Russia, I just would die in this camp because of my disease.
Perhaps the most alarming story is Rostislav's, who refused to sing the Russian national anthem.
If you say no for the first time, you must write an explanational paper why you don't want to sing the Russian anthem. If you refuse for the second time, you will be having this private conversation with this policeman Astahov. If you refuse for the third time, you will be put in some solitary confinement.
His 3rd refusal led to more than 2 weeks in solitary confinement. Their stories are the stories of thousands of Ukrainian children. Ukraine has identified at least 30,000 children who have been deported to Russia, but it's feared that number is actually much higher.
Because we can't identify a lot of kids who've been kidnapped from Mariupol or from another occupied territories whose parents were killed or imprisoned or disappeared, and Russia don't want to give us any information about these children.
Mykola Kuliba began Save Ukraine, an organization that's helped rescue hundreds of these children.
We are telling that Russia committing genocide, kidnapping children, deporting children, and brainwashing them and weaponizing them. All children who live now on occupied territory or in Russia Federation, horribly brainwashing.
He says Russia's goal is to erase their identity bit by bit.
They give children passports, Russian passports, birth certificates. They adopting children after giving them Russian citizenship. All this system works for erasing identity, for converting Ukrainian children to Russian children. And then weaponize them through their different military movements.
Save Ukraine helped rescue Denis, Lisa, and Rostislav. Lisa, how did you finally escape?
До мене приїхала мама.
My mom came to me to bring me back, and she was forced to sign lots of papers. They were checking her. I was happy. I ran to her to hug her. I was crying. And then after that, there was a very long and hard road home.
The specific details of their rescues have to be kept private. Mikola calls it an underground railroad. All three are now receiving rehabilitation at Save Ukraine's Hope and Healing Center. It's a 6-month program to help them and their families get back on their feet. They came to Washington with Save Ukraine to raise awareness for the thousands of other children still being held.
We're asking everybody who could help us to help Ukraine survive, help Ukraine win in this horrible war, and pray for us.
In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, the story points out the obvious hypocrisy of the UN. Where is the call for ceasefire here? If you're going to call Israel into a ceasefire when they were viciously attacked on October 7th, why aren't you calling Russia into a ceasefire? When Russia takes children hostages and takes them into their country, under international law, that is a war crime. Where is the cry for that? Where are we seeing that on the international stage? Where are we seeing nations say, I'm withdrawing our ambassadors? What you have done is against international law. Until you stop, we're not going to have relations with you. We're going to cancel all our contracts. We're going to withhold trade. We're going to do all these things. That's what's currently happening to Israel, and they weren't the aggressor. Who committed the war crimes? Hamas. Who went and killed civilians, innocent civilians? Hamas. Who raped women? Hamas. Who took hostages? Hamas. Who is still holding hostages? Hamas. Well, what's happening in Russia? Who invaded? Russia. Ukraine didn't start this war. Russia did. Who is targeting civilian sites? Well, Russia is. Who is kidnapping civilians and taking them hostage? Russia is. Where's the international condemnation? And can we call it for what it is? Because it is hypocrisy.